What's good, y'all? First and foremost, before I get started, I want to say thank you to Ms. Flora Jones for continuing to invest in me and my process towards progress and my leadership. You have had an incredibly transformative impact on my life, and so I appreciate you and all that you have been, are, and continue to be. I also want to say thank you to really IPS more generally. You all have become something of a family for me, which is so interesting to think about as we all seek to persevere through these pandemics of our present with powerpreneurship. You all have become more than someone that we partner with to do great work for the scholars. You have become a family, and I could never have imagined back in March or in January pre-pandemic that come August of 2020, as we enter into a truly unprecedented academic year, that I will be speaking in front of you on a Microsoft Teams call at 8 a.m. about something like this topic today. And you all continue to provide me not just opportunities to share my story and my message, but you all continue to provide support and empowerment and encouragement to me. And so I want to say thank you for that, sincerely. But in the same vein, I can talk about the support that's being offered in this moment. I understand that there are growing pains in the midst of this pandemic, and that as people, we might have opportunities to grow and to develop and to become greater versions of our previous selves, but those things take time, and those things are difficult. And in terms of the topic of today's address, which is remain encouraged, I think that's what sits at the heart, and it's that we have growing pains, but that leads to new partnerships. We have growing pains, but that leads to new sources of support. We have growing pains, but that leads to a new depth and breadth of an experience that informs who we are, what we do, and where we're going. Right? Those growing pains help us become more intentional about our purpose. And that's what I want to talk to you about briefly today. So when Ms. Ford reached out to me a while ago and she said, Mr. Murdock, I'd love for you to come this morning on August 19th at 8 a.m. on Microsoft Teams and come and talk to IPS on one of their professional development days. The topic of conversation is remain encouraged. Remain encouraged. And so I said, okay, Ms. Ford, I can set you up, and I'm gonna set you up today. But before I go into the moments with Murdock that gives depth and definition to this topic of conversation, I first want to do an etymological breakdown of the name of today's address. Remain encouraged. Remain encouraged. I want to focus on encouraged specifically. E-N-C-O-U-R-A-G-E-D. Prayerfully, I spelled that right because I said it so slow. Remain encouraged. E-N-C-O-U-R-A-G-E-D. Why am I breaking it down? Because encouraged literally means etymologically to cause courage. And that's what we are called to do for our scholars. Whether it's staff, it's teachers, or it's administration and senior leadership, we must remain encouraged in this moment, in the middle of a movement to make Black Lives Matter. As we seek to persevere through our present pandemics, we must remain encouraged for the sake of our scholars. We must cause them to have courage. But in the name of this topic of remain encouraged, I must also suggest a different spelling. I-N-C-O-U-R-A-G-E-D. Yes, remain encouraged. And when I say I-N and not E-N, we go from causing courage to become personally proximal to the courage we need to persevere through the pandemics of our present. As, again, teachers, as support staff, as senior leadership, it is of the greatest necessity that as we face these unprecedented times, that we remain encouraged, that we sit ourselves in proximity to a fearless mentality, because that's the only thing that can change our reality. We can be intentional about causing our scholars to have courage, but if we ourselves are not sitting inside of courage, we are teaching them to be cowards. And that is the preface. That is the introduction to today's Moments with Murdock. And it's that as we remain encouraged, understand that it is both the cause to courage, but also the fact that we must remain proximal to courage and sit inside of courage, because if we don't, we produce cowards. Now, more practically speaking, what's the takeaways? Because I'm talking that talk right now, but for every talk of that talk, I got a takeaway for you. And here's the Moments with Murdock for today. And it's that when you talk about remaining encouraged, here's what I say. True progress comes in striving to thrive against the pushback of your process. I'm going to say that again. Pen and pad moment right here, right now. If we're to remain encouraged, understand that true progress comes in striving to thrive against the pushback of your process. There was a previous Moments with Murdock. Don't remember what number it was, but it was a moment that was random but relevant, like the speech we're doing today. And it said that the difference between an obstacle and an opportunity is your outlook. The difference between an obstacle and opportunity is your outlook. And it's the same spirit of saying that the difference between something that's hindering you from your goal versus one that is taking you to new heights is your outlook. And I would call you to say that if we are remaining encouraged, do not be a coward and look down, but have courage and look up towards the opportunity. And that is the mentality we must need in order to strive against the pushback of our process towards progress. Because that pushback is inevitable. Again, the second step of the process towards progress is persistence. And persistence requires resistance. We cannot see progress without resistance. The pandemics of our present may come to COVID-19 and racism in 2020, but we experience pandemics on a regular basis. We just don't call them those things. And those pandemics are the resistance that we experience during our process towards progress. The resistance. And if we say that true progress comes in striving to thrive against the pushback of your progress, of your process, y'all, we got to understand the difference between the obstacle and opportunity outlook. And don't look down in cowardice, but look up in courage. Another pen and pad moment for you. Take a little bit dive deeper. Right? The things that are your pushback, right? The pushback that you experienced in your process towards progress should not be breaking you down, but rather build you up. The pushback you experience in your process towards progress should not break you down, but build you back up. That's your pen and pad moment. You got a pen and pad, got a pencil and a piece of paper, or you got Twitter fingers to type fast. That's the second thing you need to write down. And it's the fact that the pushback of your process towards progress should not break you down, but build you up. Now, we understand Audre Lorde, shout out to Black women. Audre Lorde talks about we cannot use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. So Murdock, how do you sit this idea that I can't use what was used to build this system to break it down? And we're talking about using the pushback to build us up. And it's this. We need to be innovative. We must be creative. In this moment, in the midst of this movement to make Black Lives Matter, you cannot do the same thing we've always done and expect a different result. That is literally insanity. And our scholars and students don't need insanity. They need greater clarity. And that can only come if we're being innovative. So we understand that true progress comes in strive and thrive against the pushback of your process. And we also understand that the pushback of your process towards progress should not be breaking you down but building you up. It requires that we be innovative. You must be innovative. Scholars, those who support the scholars, we must be innovative. We must be innovative. Another pen and pad moment that is of extreme importance, and it's this. And this one is really where I kind of want to bring what we're talking about home. Right? And it's that y'all, it's more so a reiteration of what I mentioned earlier. And it's that y'all, watch the see, you gotta have a dramatic pause you take just to make sure people are locked in the clock in. So I can tell you're sitting on the tip of your toes, trying to figure out what's Murdock gonna do next. And here's what's next. The last takeaway after talking that talk, and this idea of remaining encouraged, is that we must turn our pushback into pedestals. if we are to see progress. Yes, that is a pin and pad moment. We must turn our pushback into pedestals if we are to see progress. What do I mean by that? Fantastic question. Here's what I mean. A pedestal is a foundation, it's a base, it's an item of support. A pedestal is something that props other things up. And what I'm sharing with you is that in this moment, in the midst of this movement to make Black Lives Matter more being led by Black women, in the midst of this global pandemic, of this international pandemonium, we must be innovative. We must be creative. So innovative and creative that we turn our pushback into the actual foundation, the very basis upon which we build to see progress. We must turn our pushback into pedestals if we are to see progress. Because guess what? COVID-19 ain't going nowhere. Racism ain't going nowhere. Systems are predicated upon systems that are predicated upon systems of support. And systems are not broken down in a day, nor are they broken down by individual people. Systems are dismantled using different tools, using different tactics, and the reshaping and remaking of culture. Those things don't happen overnight. So if we're to see progress, for the sake of the potential of our scholars, we must be real about what we're working with. And right now, we're experiencing pushback in the pandemics of our present. We're experiencing resistance as we seek to practice persistence during our process towards progress. We are seeking to strive and dare thrive in the midst of two pandemics. And if we are to lie about our present predicament, how can we create a more fruitful future? That makes no daggone sense. So if we are to see for a more fruitful future for the sake of the potential and power of our scholars, we must turn our pushback into the pedestals, the foundation, the basis upon which we seek for progress. And it is when we do that, that we are innovative and creative and rethink the very framing of our reality. Then maybe, just maybe, we see what is needed to strive and yet thrive in the midst of these pandemics so that we might see progress. As I close, I'd like to say that this moment that's talking about striving to thrive against the pushback of your process towards progress, y'all, that's the second to last moment of the process towards progress series of Moments with Murdock. The second to last moment. Why do I share that with you? Because that series was 52 moments long. That was overall the 61st Moments with Murdock ever did. Why am I sharing that with you? Because in the same way that this moment was one moment away from ending the series, you're one moment away from your delivery. You're one moment away from your masterpiece. You're one moment away from the breakthrough you need to serve our scholars better in the midst of these pandemics. So right now, you cannot allow the pushback you receive to break you down. It must build you up because we're one moment away. You are so proximal to your process. You are so proximal to your progress. You are so proximal to your purpose. And don't let this moment pass you by. Because if you do, you wasted such an incredible opportunity because you're only one moment away. When you remain encouraged by understanding that true progress comes in striving to thrive against the pushback of your process towards progress, you're one moment away. And I dare you to stay one moment away. I dare to be so focused on that one moment that no one can take it away. I dare you. And I dare to do it not just for the sake of you or for your colleagues, but for the sake of a more fruitful future, for the sake of the sanity of the scholars that we serve. Because you know what that does? That makes sense, and that makes sensational impact all across the senses. Never forget, Murdock's about we and not me. And there's not a moment I spend not thinking about us. And this, my friends, was another relevant moment with Murdock. Thank y'all so much.